UK remain a gateway to Europe for India?
Well, at first sight, it's going to be less of a gateway to the European Union if Brexit proceeds, and particularly if Brexit proceeds in the rather hard and compromising way that the British government is determined to achieve. It will be less of a gateway. People like myself who don't believe in Brexit and would like to see it stopped or reversed, would certainly be reassured, I think, if Britain retained the single market arrangements or the customs union arrangements, both of which would essentially keep Britain within the economic framework of the European Union, and in that way provide a gateway. So a lot depends on the course of future negotiations.
What is the importance of the living bridge between the UK and India?
Well, one of the strongest links between the countries is obviously the people. We have the Indian diaspora in the UK, and not so many British people in India, and it remains important, and the Indian community makes a massively disproportionate contribution to economic, cultural, educational life in the UK, and it's something we should treasure and be positive about. But it has become a problem because of all the issues around immigration and the difficulties of obtaining visas and the ambiguous attitude towards people and negative attitudes towards immigration. I'd like to see that relaxed, and we see this in a much more positive way, in which Indians play a bigger role in our economy and society, and in which British people go to India for training, for example, something Indian industrialists have suggested.
How are the trade and investment ties with India supported by other factors, such as digital transformation and young demographics?
Well, the nature of trade and investment is obviously changing. I mean, the big companies which operate here, Tata, or the British companies which operate in India, Hindustan Lever, and the more modern variants, the oil companies like Shell and others. Of course, these are traditional types of trade and investment. In future, increasingly, it will be a kind of digital economy. In Europe, they are thinking about a digital single market, which sadly Britain was not participating in. And all countries, I think, have to think of their future trading relationships in digital terms, and in terms of the protection of data rights, privacy, copyright. I mean, there are a new set of rules needs to be created around those things, and I would hope that Britain is forward in its relations with India in trying to get those issues on the agenda.
How could the UK be using its visa system, particularly Tier 4 visa protocol, to a better effect?
Well, I think you start with a psychological point that we accept that Indian IT specialists and medical staff and others play a useful and positive role in the British economy. I think the British public need to be reassured that immigration is managed, but it can take place within a liberal visa regime, and so we should be welcoming highly skilled Indian personnel rather than regarding them as a threat and a problem.
The UK and India have an extraordinary partnership. How can the government draw on other sectors, the private sector, the third sector, and community interest groups to expand this partnership?
Well, I think a lot depends on the private sector. Governments can talk to each other, but it's largely meaningless unless it's followed up by interaction at a human and business-like level. I think the business community in Britain is engaged on one level, the CBI, the big companies, but SMEs, the smaller, medium-sized, don't really trade with India or invest in India, and that's got to change. And similarly, we've had large numbers of big Indian corporates in the UK, and they're very welcome. Companies like Tata have made a massive contribution, but it needs to be the smaller entrepreneurial companies that we could benefit from too.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.